Good morning, Fort McMurray, Wood Buffalo, and the rest of the world. You've tuned in to the Mac City Morning Show. I'm your host, Elliot Pierre, and we're going to start the show off the same way we start every episode, with a moment of gratitude. I know you could be doing a million other things with your time, so the fact that you're spending with us really does mean the world to me. On that note, Tanner, hit him with the intro.
How's she cutting me, loves? You're listening to the Mac City Morning Show.
All right, we got a good one today. Me and this gentleman have spent some time together. We actually took a course together one weekend, over 2 weeks, I think. So I'm excited to chat with him about a whole bunch of things today. That being said, as everybody's aware, I do not introduce my guests. I let them do that themselves. So on that note, sir, can you please tell everybody who you are?
My name is Tom MacIsaac. I'm currently a teacher at Father Merck High School. I teach engineering and robotics, and that's pretty much me. I'm retired. It's my retirement job. I spent 20 years in the military, so teaching is my retirement job. It's kind of a passion for me right now. So
That's awesome. Yeah, that was the one thing when we first met that kind of took me aback is, yeah, this is your retirement gig.
yeah, pretty much.
I don't think many people would become teachers as retirement. So when you were in the service, what were you doing?
So my first 10 years, I was in the army, and I achieved the rank of sergeant, and realized as a sergeant at the time that I wanted to do a little more, and I applied for officer commissioning, was accepted, and I enrolled in Royal Military College. I spent 3 years in Quebec in military college, and then 2 years following at RMC in Kingston, Ontario.
Okay.
Upon graduation, I became a naval officer, and I spent 10 years as a naval officer, and then I left the service.
Okay. Now, I know nothing about the services whatsoever. So, were you in Canada for the whole time? Were you deployed? How, like, where? What?
Well, in the army, I did do a fair bit of work overseas in Northern Europe, Norway in particular.
Okay.
It was a Cold War. It was the early '80s. A lot of work up in the Arctic, Canadian Arctic.
Okay.
Then I got sent to teach in combat school in Petawawa, Ontario. Spent a couple of years teaching there, and then I had two children, and I did some reflecting on my life and
Mm,
looking forward, seeing where I wanted to go and where I wanted to be.
right.
So upon a recommendation by my commanding officer, I applied for commissioning to become an officer, and
Yeah.
that's kind of how I segued into going to military college and becoming an officer, naval officer.
Okay. So you're doing that education. Now you've hit retirement age, which is extremely young.
Yeah.
Did you have to go back to school to get your education degree, or was
Yeah, I
that
did.
built
So
in?
what happened? Just to back up a bit here, I really had no intentions of leaving the military. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in my 20th year, so that kind of prevented me from continuing to be a naval officer.
Right.
So the military assisted me in that transition from military to civilian life, and I'd already had a degree from military college, so I had to get a education degree.
Yeah.
So as part of my transition to civilian life, they did assist me in achieving the degree. So I went to Acadia University and got my education degree.
Okay.
And once I finished my degree, I officially left the military
Right.
and started my life as a teacher.
Now, did you start off as a teacher here in Fort Mac, or?
No, not at all, actually.
Okay.
I had the opportunity to decide where I wanted to retire, so I chose to retire in Newfoundland, so where I'm from.
Right.
And so they paid for that move. So we moved to Newfoundland, and I taught my first 9 years actually in Newfoundland,
Oh, wow.
in Stephenville and then in Corner Brook. And my wife worked in Corner Brook with me. So what happened was she had got a job in Halifax.
Okay.
And so I moved to Halifax with her, went back to university again to get a master's degree. And then once I'd finished the master's program, I couldn't find any work in Nova Scotia.
Right.
Nova Scotia, it's a tough place to get a teaching job.
Hmm.
Not the least of it, the fact that there's so many universities offering education degrees.
Right.
So I went to a job fair, and Fort McMurray Catholic was there and offered me a job.
Very
The
cool.
rest is history. So I've been here. This is my 10th year actually in Fort Mac.
Wow.
So
There you go. You've been here for a long time.
yeah, 10 years.
I've spent a lot of time in the East Coast, Corner Brook in particular.
Oh no way.
I think it's the most beautiful place in the world. Corner Brook is gorgeous.
Yes.
Big shout out to the Glen Mill Inn. That's where I always stay when I go to Corner Brook. It's a historical hotel there. Oh my goodness. I can't tell you how lovely the service is when you go there. The people are beautiful, the rooms are unbelievable, and the scenery in Corner Brook is just second to none.
Yes.
Yeah. So, are you from the corner? Is that like the part of Newfoundland that you're from originally?
No,
Corner
not at
Brook?
all.
Yeah.
I was born in Port aux Basques, but I grew up in Codroy Valley, so that's what I consider home, Codroy Valley.
Right.
And then my dad moved to Stephenville to work, so we moved to Stephenville, and then I actually graduated from high school in Stephenville. And that's where my mom is currently in Stephenville. So,
Okay.
yeah,
Nice. So now you're a teacher here in Fort Mac, and you teach one of the coolest courses, hands down,
I
the
think so.
robotics.
I think so.
It's
Yeah,
pretty awesome.
yeah.
So for the people at home, explain what that program's all about, because like I think it's a cool program to get involved with as a
Yes.
child for sure.
So we at Father Merck, we have a engineering robotics program through our Science and Technology Center. I teach high school robotics. I teach robotics to middle school students. What also solidifies kind of our program is our competitive side. So we do have students that come in from grade 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and they do participate in our programs and in our classes. We do teach them about robotics. It starts out very basic, and then we even branch out into underwater ROVs, drones, land-based robotics, and so on and so on.
Yeah.
Well, what we do, we connect the classroom to the competition side. So we have competitive robotics in many levels. We have all girls teams. We have two all girls teams in the intermediate level. But that connection from classroom to competitiveness,
Mm-hmm.
the thinking we thought initially was the connection was something that students could relate to because they could take what they've been learning in class and
Right.
now apply it.
Right.
And in
Right.
some of the higher level robotics, it's real life situations. I mean, they're programming these robots to do autonomous things that, not unlike autonomous vehicles and other autonomous platforms
Yeah.
in life today. So
Yeah.
it's really, really neat.
I think it's one of those programs that is kind of, especially where the world is going nowadays, the most pertinent.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, not to bash any other of the subjects, but like, not all of them translate directly into potentially what you could be doing for a career. Like, you learn math, and okay, math is good, but I got a phone. It
Yeah,
does good calculations for me. You know
for
what I
sure.
mean?
Yeah, certainly.
Um, and so it's hard to say, like, definitively by learning mathematics what your career path is going to be. It's a good fundamental skill to have. Everybody needs math. However, you're teaching like coding and you're working
Yes.
with like like you're saying robots that can do their own thing, flying drones. Like it's real
We
life stuff.
we um we try to. One of the issues we had was interest.
Mm, really?
You assume that everybody wants to do something with robots. What we find though, and we kind of parse it into pieces, is in my high school class, my senior class,
Yeah.
there's students that like to build. They
Okay.
love building. There's students that they don't want to build. They want to code, so they code. Then there's students that want to be designers, so we teach them how to use SolidWorks, CAD, and they design. So
Right.
they kind of, by the time they get into the senior level, they start going in different directions, still in the same context of robotics, but they're
Right.
finding niche areas where they are interested in some cases, much better at.
Yeah.
Like coding tends to be a place where most students kind of get it, but really have no interest as to pursuing it. That we have some senior coders right now that are quite gifted.
Yeah.
But these students, that's all they want to do. They want to code. They don't want to build a robot. They want
Okay.
to code the robot. And then you have students that just recently, one just got a certification for CAD, which is computer aided design.
Yeah.
He is one of our design team group, and he is fantastic, and he loves the design.
Yeah.
So yes, I mean, it's a very holistic environment, robotics. So you
Yeah.
can teach so many different things, right? So
Well, that CAD program you're talking about, I used to recruit for an engineering company here in town. And yeah, we had to hire engineers who could do that.
yep,
So for him to have that skill and be proficient at it at such a young age, that's going to translate.
big time.
Same with coding. Like I think you're not allowed to say it. This episode might be taken down from the internet, but you can't even say like learn to code on Twitter anymore, like because it's like a bad thing. But like, yeah, like coding is super fundamental in so many
Yes,
future career options. So for the kids to get a taste of that, super cool.
that is cool.
Now you and I went to drone, I don't know, college course. I don't know what you want to call
Yeah,
it.
drone school, yeah.
Yeah, we're licensed drone pilots.
hmm
I never fly my drone.
Shame on you.
Never, ever, ever. the paperwork that's required and the areas that we're limited to fly it in are so small in Fort McMurray. I'm just like, eh. I got it because I thought it would be good for business.
Sure.
But then after going through the course with you and all the other people in the course, I was just like, there's no way I could potentially like turn this into a profitable business based on what I wanted to do. But you guys, from the school standpoint, you're flying drones all the time. You guys have
Yes.
all different type of drones.
So we kind of we're not skirting the rules. We
Right.
realize that there's been new Transport Canada regulations, and
Yeah.
now they've kind of divided it into pieces. So anything that they call it sub 300,
Mhm.
less than 300 grams, which is what we fly most. That's our workhorse, our tiny little drones.
Right.
And they have nice cameras. So the 300 gram, less than 300 gram drones, a lot of these strict regulations don't apply to them
Right.
because they don't go very high and they don't go very far.
Right.
But they're just camera drones, and they're fantastic to use for what we've been using them for. So
Yeah.
the bigger drones, working on getting our students actually certified, but we still have to do the SFOC, the Special Flight Operations Certificate, if we want to do any.
Right.
Yeah, but we're keeping it close to home, so to speak, and we're using smaller drones. But the training's not wasted. Some
Yeah.
of these students are doing some fantastic work with our little drones.
The thing is, I used to fly it a decent amount when I didn't know the regulations.
Sure.
As soon as you take the course, well, now you become liable, and now all the rules fall into play. You can't play.
Absolutely.
You can't plead the fifth.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, in Canada to fly a drone, which is good. Hey, I'm not against the regulations behind them. I think they protect a lot of people, and hey, it's good to have some form of regulation. But flying a drone in Fort McMurray, it's a tough one.
So I did invite in because there are I know of 2 companies here in Fort McMurray that are drone companies.
Right.
They've came in and spoke to my students.
That's
So
awesome.
it gives them perspective.
Yeah.
Some of the professional drone pilots, not some, all of the professional drone pilots here, they're flat out. They work constantly.
Yeah.
There's so much work for them. So,
So much
for,
work.
for my students to realize like I can do this as a career.
Yeah.
Sure you can.
And that's the one thing that the regulations have put into play for businesses is you can charge a lot more for that now because it is so difficult
Yes.
to like get through the accreditation and the insurance, and then when you want to do a job, all the paperwork,
Yeah.
you could charge a higher rate because it is not easy. Not everybody can do it.
Absolutely.
But yeah, for my little purposes that I wanted it for, I'm just like, there is money, but I don't want to do any of that. But yeah, that's cool. So we're at a part of the show called the Mac City Minute. This is Tanner's part. He's going to ask you 5 random questions. I never know what he's going to ask. He always blows my mind. But Tanner, hit him with the Mac City Minute.
Question number 1 for you today. What is one thing you'd like to invent a robot to do for you?
Cook my food.
Question number 2. What was one memory from the military you take with you into teaching?
Discipline.
Question number 3. How do you find dealing with people in the military system and the school system similar?
Professionalism.
Question number 4. How do you use your military training in teaching robotics?
Grit.
And your final question. What is your favorite memory involving a robot?
Going to a world's competition with my students for underwater robotics.
And those have been your 5 questions.
Very cool. Yeah, that was one thing the last time I was in the school with you, because when I think about robots, I think about like the traditional ones that you have, especially from like battle bots and
Yeah, those
whatnot.
ones, yeah.
They just like they pick up balls, they put them, or they have chainsaws or axes and they attack one another. And so then I came in, checked out some of your guys' robots, and all of a sudden you had all these submarines basically that looked like drones, but they went underwater, and I'm like, that constitutes as a robot too?
Big time.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Really cool stuff. So when you're using those, because the water here in Fort McMurray is pretty dark,
Yeah.
like, are you putting that in like the Sny and stuff? or-
We tried unsuccessfully. We deployed one from a Zodiac. This is a couple of years ago. So we had what we were doing some water sampling. So we had a sampling apparatus that we had configured onto the ROV. So we deployed it, and the visibility was something we could deal with, but
Yeah.
the current
Yeah.
and being able to control that small drone, I guess you'd say, underwater,
Right.
it was very hard. And
Right.
it's tethered, but essentially it wasn't powerful enough. The thrusters weren't powerful enough to be able to fight the current.
Right.
And once again, the visibility is terrible.
It's terrible. It's rough.
So we did do some other deployments. We tried some of the storm ponds. This was way back when we spoke to a local biologist. This is several years ago, and I guess Asian carp had actually made their way in some of the storm ponds. So she was doing some testing, and so we offered to deploy one of our ROVs into the storm ponds, maybe just get a visual on some of these Asian carp. So it didn't really happen. We had some difficulty with launching, and then the turbidity, the clarity of the water was terrible, and so on.
Yeah.
But the idea of it, students
Yeah.
are pretty excited.
Yeah, no doubt.
We did do a couple launches, so we didn't see much. But
Yeah. It's cool. Like, and I follow you guys' Twitter page, and I look at the competitions that you go to as well. Like, there's one, I don't know the gentleman's name. He's a young man now, but I remember meeting him years ago, and he must have just been in junior high. Has red hair, and now he's like an adult, basically, still in like a young adult, but he's still doing the robotics program, and like he's crushing it every time I follow his like not little, it's a big thing, his career.
Yep.
In competition wise, like it's cool to see them grow and then move up in these competitions that they're doing.
Yes, absolutely.
So with COVID, what's the competition world like now?
It's, I won't say it's a bust, but it's not like it has been. So just recently, as a matter of fact, thanks for asking that.
Yeah.
We have two teams that were entered into the Skills Canada Mobile Robotics Competition,
Right.
and they finished bronze and silver. So the way it worked was we had two fields set up in our school. So each field was associated to each team. And
Right.
then we set up 5 cameras, and the competition was like a problem-solving competition. And what it was, they had to do to harvest these little dowels, which are supposed to be trees.
Right.
And using the dowels, build a log cabin.
Oh, neat.
So there's 2 robots. One harvests the trees, shoots them down this little simulated waterfall.
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
other robot grabs them and starts building the log cabin. And
Oh,
they have 4
cool.
minutes to do that. So they did really well. And like I said, bronze and silver.
And so that's how they're doing it. You set up the course in your school, but then
Yes.
you record it
Yes.
so they can see it because nobody's traveling right now.
No, not at
So
all.
interesting.
The senior robotics one was a little less interactive. They had the opportunity to participate in like a skills competition. They would videotape their robot, and I think the girls team decided to do a game design, which was once again a little different. So the senior robotics group were a little disappointed with the options they were given with regards to competing, but it wasn't the same. It's not the
Yeah.
same. They don't look
Oh,
the
yeah.
same,
Well, there is something to be said about competition when you're with the people and seeing
Oh,
how
yeah,
everything's
absolutely.
going down. But yeah, what they're doing, especially with the coding, the word is ignorant. I just didn't know. I figured when I looked at your robots, like it's all remote control, like what's the big deal? But they're coding it to move in a certain way. And then fast forward years later, all of a sudden Tesla comes on the scene in a big, like I know it
Yeah.
was around when I first met you, but now you can get Teslas that are programmed to like do ballet and drive and do all these cool things. And that is legitimately the fundamentals of what you're teaching. It's so cool, man. So cool.
So I tell students that question of what the reasoning of behind learning all this stuff is, and I said, well, programming that little robot to a grade 8 or a grade 7 to move around this maze and to navigate the walls and to not bump into the wall and move it around, that's an autonomous vehicle.
That's right.
It is. It's autonomous. I mean, the coding is a little less complex, but you're still using sensors. You're giving the robot an awareness of its environment,
Yeah.
and it's the same thing. When you
Yeah.
get a grade 7 kid that can program it to navigate a maze, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. I'm happy that you're on the show on this. I know we're running out of time, but I saw something, and if you haven't checked it out, I just saw it yesterday. Domino's Pizza has the first autonomous delivery driver.
Wow.
I don't know if you've seen this
I
yet.
haven't
Check
seen
it
it.
out.
Yeah,
I
I
think
will.
your kids would find it
Absolutely.
really cool. It's this little car. It's a straight up car, and like you open it, and it keeps your pizzas like super warm because that's all it is. It's like an oven on wheels, basically, like a warming oven. And it comes to your house, and then you have to walk out and you type in your code, and then you can open it just like a newspaper box.
cool.
And then you take out your pizza, and then you close it, and you go back in your house. So this is completely automated from like when it leaves Domino's location to when it gets your house. Does it all on its own. So I saw this last night. So if you have a chance, go check it out. Domino's is doing some pretty cool things that I think your kids would resonate with if you're just like, how do I translate this into a job? Well, somebody at Domino's is doing exactly what we're doing
Exactly.
here right now. So before I cut you loose, though, Tom, please, before you leave, shameless plug. Once again, who are you? Where are you working? And more importantly, because of what you do, how can kids get involved in your programs?
So I'm Tom MacIsaac. I work at Father Merck High School. I teach at the Science and Technology Center. I teach engineering and robotics. And we do have competitive robotics programs at our school, starting at grade 7 right up to grade 12. And we do encourage students to come and check us out. We meet on Saturdays, not so much now, but we will once this opens up a bit. We meet Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays.
There we go. Sweet. Thanks, man. On that note, Fort McMurray, Wood Buffalo, and the rest of the world, thank you so much for tuning in today. This has been the Mac City Morning Show. As per usual, I'm your host, Elliot Pierre, and thank you for tuning in. Hopefully you're having a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Peace.
I said this. That's another Mac City Morning Show done.
It's so ballistic!
Talk about quenching your ugly thirst.